The following is a special presentation of the Buccaneers Sports Network. This is the Jay and Keith Show. Two broadcasters. Oh, yeah. Two microphones. And one meticulously scripted podcast.
You what?
Just kidding. Get it, J.K.? You get it.
That's what I thought was so funny. It's not funny.
Alongside Keith Brake, here's the voice of the Bucs, Jay Sandos.
All right, Tuesday after a win, ETSU football rolls Carson-Newman 42-0. They rolled like the thunderstorm it rolled through for about 3 hours.
Rolling
plus.
thunder.
It was.
And flying barons.
A lot of talk. A lot of talk we had to do before, and then finally the Red Baron did take over.
Yes, he did. I used flying like the Red Baron on the first touchdown going to break one time. And
I did not.
Yeah.
No,
you didn't.
I did not.
No.
I don't know what I said.
I would be amazed if you remembered what you said because you were in like your fifth, sixth hour on the air at that point.
Because that was the first quarter touchdown, or was that second quarter?
That was the second touchdown of the game.
Second touchdown of the game. I would have been 5 hours in.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wouldn't remember what I said 5 hours in either.
Yeah. The worst mistake, and I think you even threw the thing at me of like, "Hey, we should come over and kill time." And then it didn't dawn on me until we got in the game, and I randomly blurted something out, and I was like, why during the 3 hours did I not have Keith and Mark just kill time, and we could have just took a walk? And I think Robert,
because we were doing nothing.
I think Robert said, "Well, didn't you read a text that said so much that?" And I'm like, he didn't just say it, but yeah, he probably did say it. I don't know. I honestly, you could just do what other people do, which is just randomly walk in here and just throw a headset on you. I mean,
I could have done that. I mean, I just didn't want to interrupt y'all's flow.
Oh my God, yes, because I could see you down there, and you were so into it that if I said anything wrong, you were texting me immediately, or if I didn't know an answer.
We were listening to, so you know how we can get the program feed in the booth. Yeah, we were listening to. That's how I know.
It took me a while to figure that out. I was like, how's he listening and how's he responding so quickly?
Yeah.
Because I thought you were using the app or something and didn't realize. But.
I said, text us if you need us. Hut is getting antsy. Mark Hutzel was kind of getting antsy in the booth, and like he needed to talk about something.
So, yes, you said as much like, hey, if you I'll come over anytime. And then I didn't.
Pretty much.
I'm not smart. It's okay. It's all right.
That's part of why you hired me. Also, can we get a Jay knows the English language?
Oh my gosh.
Can we get a Jay knows the English language? I have one.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
He texted me at 2 a.m. Please, the number 4. Ivory? And he never brought it up again.
So middle of the day on a Wednesday, he sent me munch, no, from, no, ain't no punctuation ever. He's got to have letters missing from his keyboard. I'm still trying to figure that one out, bro.
The back end of 2 basketball games and a football game in the same weekend. It was a 6 a.m. email that said, "Shoe runs mo world."
That's my favorite.
Girls, which
Shoe
either
runs
meant
mo
"Who
world."
runs the world, girls," that Beyonce song, or was just a terrible shoe joke.
All right. Yesterday, Monday, 11:39 a.m. I got all the stuff from Kevin Starwise. Don't worry about bringing me that today.
Yeah.
Kevin's Starwise. What is this? What's the Starwise?
So,
I know what you were trying to say.
No, a lot of people want to talk about, stat packs and statistics and all that. I want to know star-wise what Austin P has, and he gave it to me.
That's what you wanted to know.
No, I don't want to know that. I told you that I had that.
You told me that you had that, but you obviously wanted to know that. That's why you took the initiative instead of just waiting for me to hand deliver you all your game notes like every week.
Yeah, I mean, I am big time as talent and expect you
to
bring me that.
Yeah, well, that just tells me you're really getting up for Austin P.
I'm getting up for Austin P.
How about that?
It's the next opponent. And
the Starwise.
And B, I like blowing people's minds when I tell them that they got totally blown out by Southern Illinois by a lot more than Tennessee beat them. And then
it was actually a lot worse than the final score at SIU.
And the Tennessee people just stare at me because they have no idea, like, what are you talking about? Because and this is how it always works. And this is every fan base. I'm not picking on anything. But whenever a Power 5 team plays as vanilla as they can because they really don't care about the opponent they're playing, and they don't break out all the frills, and they limp to a victory because they're playing, I don't know, an arch rival the next week in, let's say, Florida.
Yeah.
That they didn't want to show a lot.
And they're going to Gainesville where they haven't won in 20 years,
So, they probably didn't put a lot into that. I hate to say it. They didn't respect their opponent. They just wanted to go vanilla and win, and that's fine. And they did because they have more scholarships and more athletes and all blah, blah, blah. But in the same token, my favorite part of that is said fan base will turn around and look and say, man, that's a really good team. I mean, they're probably going to win their league or whatever. And I'm like, they're picked 5th in their league.
Yeah.
And they got hammered by Southern Illinois. And I'm not saying they will or won't beat ETSU. I'm just going to go to a limb and say they're not going to win their league. And they're probably going to finish middle of the pack. That's what I'm going to go with.
Oh, who will even win that league? Who will win the UAC?
Well, that league is turned over in like 2 years. I don't even know off the top of my head if I could name every team in that league, and that's a new.
Hang on. Okay, I can do
off
this.
the top
I
of our
can
head.
do this. I can do this.
Here we go.
Eastern Kentucky, Austin P, North Alabama, Central Arkansas. Is there one more ASUN school? I'm gonna jump to the WAC side. Stephen F. Austin, Tarleton, Abilene Christian, Southern Utah, Utah Tech. UTRGV doesn't join until next year. Trying to remember if I think I might have missed one, but I have my conference realignment spreadsheet that I can just pull up and tell you. But yeah, Austin P decent in that league. Did I get them all?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I believe you did.
How about that?
I'm double checking.
How about that?
So the only one I think I would have missed was Utah Tech.
Yes, the artist formerly known as Dixie State.
Right. And that's probably why I would have missed him. But okay, there you go. That was impressed.
Yeah, but don't clap for that. That's not even a party trick. Stop it. That is
genius.
Who can name the UAC? All right.
They can't even name. They can't even give that conference a compelling name.
No,
Come
that logo's something to be desired too.
It just makes me think of GAC, the totally not CMT music video channel from the early 2000s. I don't even know if that's still around.
Well, it took me like a quarter on the field of North Alabama to figure out why there's no N. I was like, this UA is a very weird logo without having the N, and then it finally dawned on me. I was like, oh yeah, the UAC. But it did take me a while to figure that out. Yeah.
You were you were looking for the N? Oh, UNA. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not even a joke. I literally was trying to figure out why the N wasn't in there, and that's very odd looking. Well, it's a very odd looking U with some lines in it.
Yes.
And then I was trying to
because
figure out,
they put like American flag iconography over the top of it, like they layered that in.
I don't know who did the branding.
So it's United.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
So,
Anyway, Austin P.
We are going to break down Austin P a little later. I want to get into that. I will say Austin P looked way better in Game 2 than Game 1, and they ran a lot of frills, and I'm not finished watching the game, but I think that said more about Tennessee wanted to run 6 plays in base and not do a whole lot of anything, and eventually better athletes and more money usually wins out in those games, and so they did. And also, by the way, Southern Illinois, who hammered Austin P, went on to win at Northern Illinois, which was one of our pick sixes we'll get to later.
I believe, yes, one of us picked that game correctly.
I don't know. We'll go over it later. I mean, there's no sense, talking about it now. I mean, we got other stuff.
We could. If you want to get it out of the way.
Nope. I'm going to talk recap first and then take my lumps later.
Slow your roll. Okay.
So let's jump into this. All right. So ETSU, after the delay, clearly that was fun times for all. But once it got going, the good news is the game just played. Like it was just a game. It wasn't interrupted. It wasn't, and we'll go over some SoCon games a little later, but it was just you go play. And once you got going, you had a 30-minute warm-up, a little awkward, but once, didn't run through the E, all that stuff. But once they teed it up, kicked it off, it was there. And the one thing that jumped off the page was this young defense that I thought played pretty well against Jacksonville State. I thought would maybe have some moments of lapses and stuff, and for the most part, they didn't. I thought they played really well. They were able to rotate a bunch of guys in. Defensive line looked good as well. Back end, other than Chris Hope and his calf, and we'll have to, pay attention to that during the week. I thought, Ray Coney continues to impress as a young guy. Jalen George continues to impress. I thought Hoskins, was an animal. Steven Scott was able to blitz on third down and hit people. But that defensive line, again, that's a little thin, has been able to hold its own through the first couple of games. And to me, that's a good sign. Plus, they were able to rotate some guys in, because that's the one question, right? The first team D, you kind of knew a lot. I mean, I had some questions at corner, but you kind of felt like Brantley and Evans had been there before. A couple linebackers had been there before. How would Teddy Wilson do? How would Hoskins do? How would the freshmen do? Everybody else had at least seen some action, right? Jalen George hadn't either. So you had like 6 knowns, 5 unknowns. You're getting DeAndre Davis back at some point. How is this going to play out? And I thought so far through 2 games, I've been impressed in what Billy Taylor's been able to get out of these young guys. Now, they'll be tested. Again, I don't want to get too far into Austin Peay, but some of the things schematically that Austin Peay does offensively, plus with a true running quarterback, is going to be a little bit of a struggle bus. And because that quarterback is probably the better thrower of all the quarterbacks they have faced so far this season. So, A, he's the best quarterback they've faced so far, but B, he's a true dual threat that can throw. His next pass completion will pretty much get him to 5,000 career yards. He's at 4,998. So unless he throws for negative or 1 yard, then he's going to get to 5,000 career passing yards. So clearly it's the best quarterback that they've faced, throwing the ball, running the ball. But for what it was, and when ETSU smelled blood in the water defensively, they were able to make the plays and make the stops.
Yeah, I thought the defense played really, really well. Like you said, the line. I mean, you saw what this scheme is supposed to do when it works well. Is the defensive line clears gaps for the linebackers to make plays. Team can't run the ball on you. They get in second and long, they get in third and long, and then Billy Taylor brings the house. And he can bring it from a lot of different directions. He can heat you up with his bull linebacker Steven Scott, which is the Mike position. He can heat you up with the Bandit. He can heat you up with the Ram. He'll do whatever. And I really think that particularly on third downs, and this is a guy that they've shuffled around a little bit, and I just don't know if they totally know what they want to do with him, but something is starting to coalesce around Hot Rod Fitton, where he is a pass rush weapon. And that's something, you and I have talked about this before. Where does your consistent pass rush come from? Who's your guy that's getting to the quarterback? Because last year, I think Chandler Martin led the team with like 2.5 sacks. That's not very much. And the team in general didn't have a whole lot of consistent pass rush. Who is your guy when you need to go get the quarterback? Who's the player that you trust the most to get through, get home, and put him on his posterior? And I really feel like Fitton has taken a step toward being somebody that ETSU can look at as a blitz weapon who can get after the quarterback, who can be disruptive on the edge. And maybe that's just his identity. I don't know how good he is. We haven't really seen him in coverage get tested. We haven't seen him do other things that would really test him. But as far as just getting to the quarterback, his get off, his rip move to get through a guy, his ability to hurdle guys that try to cut him, I think he's done great at getting to the quarterback. And when you team him up with somebody like Steven Scott, who is comfortable in this defense getting downhill, when you team him up with somebody like Hoskins, who is also able to heat you up, I really feel like Billy Taylor has a lot more tools in the toolbox than maybe he did a season ago. And that's going to make this defense really, really fun to watch up front. Now, in the back, you mentioned Chris Hope got hurt, little calf thing. Tonquez Ball missed an interception. It went right through his hands. It was like that meme of the kid trying to catch the ball and just wrap their hands around air and the ball hits him in the face. Like, that was kind of how it was, because Tonquez, there was nobody else fighting him for that football, and he missed it. But other than that, I thought Tonquez played really well on Saturday. And that's somebody that, again, you had an opportunity to build a little trust in. I think you saw a little bit more trust for your backup corners. Josh Trice was fine. Khalil Anderson made an interception. A couple times he was in maybe a misalignment, but overall, you see the playmaking ability of a guy like that, and that's why they brought him in. This defense is, I felt at the beginning of the year like the defense was going to ultimately, in the final analysis, be okay, even though it was thin at corner. And now I am more confident in that assessment of this defense now than I was 2 weeks ago.
So I'll tell you another name that I've not heard a lot about, but I thought Tyree Rainey, because all I've heard is, basically if Hope or Arnold go down, we've got Tonka West-Ball and we got to figure it out. But I thought Tyree Rainey looked pretty good at safety, came up and wasn't afraid to make hits and even one play in the passing game. So, and
he has been really he was on the football all fall camp, like in terms of just making plays in the pass game, PBUs, picks. He was I thought he had an okay camp. There are still some things I think they want to work on with him before they really trust him to get out there and play and be a player for them. But you saw definitely some glimpses of a guy that can do the thing at this level.
So, defensively, I thought, again, did some great things. ETSU got off the field, not a lot of penalties as far as the defensive side of things. I want to go to special teams next because I thought that was really the big difference maker. It was, I think, all facets. I mean, they had one chance at a kick return, so take that off the table. But they kicked short on purpose to work on coverage stuff. I think only one time Carson-Newman, twice, got beyond the 25-yard line. And that was early in the game. They had a couple, I thought, breakdown, not close quickly. And in the second half, they corrected kind of some of those running lanes that they were given on the kick coverage, which I thought was great because sometimes you don't get a live fire stuff. Able to do it. The punt game was incredible. Nate Brackett, 70-yard career-high punt, 3 times inside the 20, 2 inside the 10, 3 50-plus yarders. He was great. Punt coverage was great. There was one protection breakdown, but Brackett got it off without it being blocked. And then the punt return game was incredible because Anaj Carter was able to average 20 yards a punt return. Then he goes out with a rolled ankle. Xavier Gallardetz came in. Gallardetz. And Gallardetz actually had 19.5 yards per return, right? And so then you look at 20 yards, 19.5, pretty solid there. And then, of course, they somehow missed the one block. Like, I don't know how it got in between. I've watched it a couple times. Just didn't have their hands crossed or something, but they got a piece of it. And then the very next one was the one where Teddy Wilson blocked it, and then Ray Coney was able to recover it, which, again, that's 4 times in the past, 13 games that they've got a block, 3 for a touchdown and 1 at the 1-yard line. So making special teams plays, and that goes into field position, which I was going to go into next. ETSU averaged their own 42-yard line. Carson-Newman averaged their own 19. And so when you start there to there, that extra, 30-plus yards that you have to go less to get a score for ETSU as opposed to Carson-Newman is a huge difference in the game. And kind of the reason I brought that up because it was a field position game for the most part when ETSU played Jacksonville State. ETSU started at their own 22-yard line where Jacksonville State started at their own 42. And you see the difference in the scores, right? 49-3, 42-0.
Yeah, no doubt. And Carson-Newman just struggled to get the ball out of their own end once they did have it. I really didn't feel like they moved the ball all that well. And some of that's credit to the defensive front. Some of it's just the fact that I honestly expected them to run more options, like true option stuff, just speed option, stuff that gets the quarterback involved in the run game than they actually did. I think they only ran it 2 or 3 times. And in general, their offense looked like it was discombobulated. I really just did not know what to make of Carson-Newman offensively, and ETSU never gave them a chance to breathe. And special teams helped out a lot with that too, because creating those short fields, you put them in holes, they're still trying to run the football. Because they try to throw it, and Fitton and Scott and Hoskins and West and everybody is just breathing down your neck. It was It was a really good
and
effort for defense and special teams.
Whitson got hurt. Their backup Trey Luttrell was hurt the previous week.
Yes.
Wasn't available to go. Then Martinez threw one long pass in which Steven Scott blasted him on.
Yeah.
And then Myers, the transfer from Kentucky State. So, I mean, they've already had to play 4 quarterbacks out of necessity, which is never good for a team to begin with, because as we're going to talk about here in just a second with Baron May, when you put all these different guys in, they all do different things. So if you're not able to work on all these different things, it's just very difficult to come in those situations and live fire, especially when you're playing up in that game. And ETSU at that point actually, for the most part, had a lead. He can just like Jacksonville State, pin their ears back, not have to worry about a lot, and just go get the quarterback. It was tough. It was tough for Carson-Newman.
It was. And offensively, I think what you wanted with no Tyler Rydell was for things to be as easy and straightforward and simple as they possibly could be for Baron May to guide your team to the result that you expected. And I think if I told you before the game ETSU is going to win 42 rip, if I told you 4 weeks ago, ETSU is going to beat Carson-Newman 42 rip, you say, yeah, okay, sure, that works. Yeah, that's fine. That's about what I would expect. A 42-0 win over a Division II school is about what you would expect for ETSU given the circumstances. And so even with Tyler Rydell being hurt, even with Jacksonville State not going as well as you wanted it to, you're still about where a lot of us thought that this team might be. You're 1-1 going into Austin Peay. This is the game where you're going to find out how good this team is.
In the overall scheme of things, at the beginning of the year, and we talked about this ad nauseum during the rain delay, was pretty much you had ETSU penciled 1-1 for the most part. You know, you might have had some crazy people 2-0.
There's like a 30% chance of winning the game, and there was a 10% chance that what happened, and, well, 10% is not 0. So,
all right, so they're exactly where they are. They played up, they played down. Now they're going to play equal the rest of the way, FCS, and one more, non-con game. For Baron May, the first quarterback to rush for over 100 yards since Austin Herink versus Kentucky Wesleyan, in which he set the school record for rushing yards for a quarterback in a game.
Yep.
Threw a couple touchdown passes. One, Will Huzzy made it a little bit more of an adventure than he probably should have. And then the other one, Baron.
He did a little bit.
That was the most. It's hard for Will Huzzy not to look athletic, but that weird time jump that I'm not even sure he needed to jump. I think he just wanted to make a one-handed grab. That's what I'm blaming.
You know what? I loved
Huzzy.
it. I call it art on the broadcast because it was a piece of art. That was awesome to watch. The Guyardet's touchdown in the
I've got you doing
quarter.
it now.
Yeah, it's Guyardet's. It's Guyardet's.
So you got the full pronunciation from him.
I got it from Kevin, who told me that Guyardet's told him it's Guyardet's.
So the pronunciation guy that was Gal is incorrect.
From my understanding, yes.
So how are we phonetically spelling this? Just get down this rabbit hole. How are we so that we say it right? G-U-Y, like guy?
You can say it guy.
So he's a guy, not a gal.
Yes.
Guyardet's. Because I'm just going with the guide of, again, this is why sometimes freshmen, and this is my complaint, sometimes players just go with, well, you could just say that's fine. No, I don't want to just say it's fine. How do you say your name?
Let
How
us
does
get
your mom
your name
say
right.
Your name? Right.
Let us get your name
we
right.
We will do what we can to get the name right. We'll get everybody on the crew to say it right. We'll get everybody in tune by a couple of games in that everyone will know how to say it. It's like
and we will not call you Junior Baruta.
That's yes, or Adeki, because it was a decade.
A decade.
Even though it had an E on the end, he was like, it's a decade, and you hit the A hard on the end. My favorite was Lucas Gasson. I said, how do you say it? He says, just say, and I can't do the Dutch accent, but he would say, just say, guess as fast as you can, and then a French on.
Gasson.
And
Lucas Gasson.
And I did it a couple times. He was like, that one right there, do that the whole time. And so I sat there and practiced the whole time. So anyways.
Yeah,
so
I tried to.
Okay, got
yeah,
it.
I tried
I'm
to
fine
say.
with that. I just did not, I had not talked to him. But I've got Kevin pretty much in a good spot where, like you say, like have him say it in their phone a lot, and we'll get together if he's not sure. But we've heard Giradets from the coaches, which what we went with until we were told it wasn't Giradets. Then on the thing, it was Gallardets, G-A-L, Gallardets. And then you've talked to him, or did you not talk to him?
I talked to Kevin.
So Kevin said Gallardets.
Secondhand, Kevin said via vis-a-vis the wide receiver himself, who made a phenomenal catch. And that route was awesome because
he left the guy in the dust.
He ate the safety's lunch. And I want you to appreciate my restraint, because I saw that out of the corner of my eye, and I wanted to just turn and grab Mark Hutzel by the arm and point and just say on air, ooh, 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 because I knew immediately where the ball was going. May knew where the ball was going. Gallardetz was coming to him, or Gallardetz knew it was coming to him, and he made a terrific catch and fell forward into the end zone. That was delightful. I enjoyed that entire sequence, and Xavier Gallardetz is a player. He is a player. Wow. I did not expect this from him right out of the gate. In the first 2 games of his college career, he's got, 113 receiving yards and a touchdown? That's a heck of a start. And it's only going to get better from here. But to the more salient point, as you've sidebarred us on pronouncing Xavier.
I want to make sure I said it right.
Gallardetz.
I'll take as much as many people either spell your name wrong or say my name wrong. I would like to try to get his name right.
Yeah, it's a saga. But aside from Gallardetz and aside from Huzzy, who went over 2,000 yards receiving in the game, which makes him the 3rd player, I believe, in ETSU history to do that.
3rd, yes. He's behind
B.J.
Adigan and Cecil Moore.
Yes. B.J. Adigan was really good. Both those guys really, really good. That's great company. But Baron May was really the talking point, right? We weren't sure if Tyler Rydell was going to trot out, if he was going to give it a go, and sounds like it might actually be a little bit before we get Tyler Rydell back, because George Kroll said on Monday he expects Baron May to go against Austin Peay. So,
and again, you have a bye week after that.
Yeah, so that helps.
Same thing with Lewis, same thing with Davis, same thing with Rydell. I mean, I know I don't know that ETSU's in a spot where, like, again, they're coming off a couple of championships and playoff runs where it's like, well, we got to be worried about the play. Right now, I think ETSU needs to worry about the conference and to try to win the conference to get into it, not so much worried about the other stuff.
Okay, now, let me talk. I want to say my sentence about Baron. Baron May played fine. I think if you had a specific opinion of Baron May going into the game, I don't know that you saw anything that changed your mind one way or the other. If you thought this guy's going to be fine, you're probably feeling pretty good. If you thought this guy has ball security issues, well, he fumbled in the red zone. And sometimes he gets a little antsy in the pocket, and he did do that. And he took off and ran. And sometimes going through his progressions, maybe it wasn't the smoothest. But I think he did enough to validate him being out there as somebody who can make plays in this offense. Is it the cleanest? Not always. But it was also his first start at any level in 4 years. So it's going to be a little choppy. And starting a game, knowing you're going to start a game, is very different from coming in a specialty sub package. It's very different from coming in because the starter got hurt. It's different from coming in because you're in a blowout and you just don't want to risk anybody else. Like, it's different. It's different starting a game. Your mindset changes. It shouldn't change, but it does change. We are not naive enough to think that the way you prepare to start a game, knowing that you are going to have command of everything that is called on that given day, you prep different. And overall, I thought May showed enough to earn the trust of his receivers. He got decent pass protection. The running back stepped up. Bryson Irby picked up a blitz that let May streak out for like a big, 15, 16-yard run on a scramble. I thought you saw enough to have some level of belief that this team can hold its own without Tyler Rydell at quarterback.
So the only real two things about Barron. One, I know he loves contact. But I think there's a time and a place where sometimes, you don't have to take unnecessary hits. But he thrives on it. And there are certain players that do. I mean, I kept thinking Austin Herrick, who was more of a lower the shoulder than slide or get out of bounds guy, that, at some point that would wear on him, and it just didn't. And some guys are built for that. And I think, honestly, Barron played better after he got a big hit in. It's one of those things where, like, sometimes, a guy just needs to hit. And there's a couple of those where I'm like, oof, I think he could, occasionally get down or get out of bounds. Now, it's different if you need 3 yards and you're trying to battle through somebody. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, he had a first down or he wasn't going to get a first down, and he's just taking a necessary hit. The second thing is you talked about, I thought maybe, he could hang in the pocket a little bit longer, maybe a half tick to let things develop. But in the same token, as he said, he's not started a game since 2019.
Right.
And so that, and just, I don't know what you and Mark were talking about on TV, but Matt, being a former quarterback, that he would talk about that and say, look, as he gets more reps, as he sees more game-like stuff, then the extra half tick, especially like when you go back and watch it on film, because again, Barron hasn't played a full game to get a lot of reps and to get a look at it. So to run for over 100 yards for the first time since, 2016 for a quarterback? And then 15. And then he threw a couple touchdown passes. And again, one Will made a little bit more entertaining than it probably should have been. And the other one, the guy was so wide open, I think he just didn't want to mess it up, because I think he kind of, what did Coral say, shot put it out there as opposed to just chunking it. But Guyardette's made such a great move. So I had to catch myself. Guyardette's made such a great move that he was so wide open. I certainly can see that. And we've seen that before. But I want to talk about the dime he dropped to Bryson Irby on the wheel route with the linebacker, 33 yards down the sideline.
Yeah.
I thought that was by far that showed a confident looking pass.
And that one didn't even look that clean coming out of the hand. Like, you could see the stripes wobble back and forth. It almost looked a little bit like a punt. But he knew where his guy was, and he got the throw, and he took a hit. He took a hard hit to make that throw. That's something that you like to see from your quarterback, in the sense that once he has his read, once he is locked on target, there is nothing that will stop him from going out there to that target. I thought Irby made a great adjustment on that ball. And again, that's just one more thing that he has shown he is capable of doing. And that's all you're looking for. Show me that you're capable. And I think Barron May showed that he was capable Saturday night.
Yeah, I think the and I know we're talking, it's 42-0, it's all sunshine and rainbows, but the one thing I think that's still kind of glaring, and I'm trying to chart it, I won't have it as we do this podcast on a Tuesday morning, but Thursday I'm going to look at handoffs, because taking read options out, taking Barron scrambling out of the pocket yardage, I think ETSU only averaged about 3 yards per handoff, and that's a concern at any level. And again, this is game 2 for the line. They're still learning the protection stuff. Talking to Jay Guillermo, there was a lot better communication. There wasn't as many breakdowns. They're starting to play more. So they're starting to get there. The other thing is the one thing when you have Tyler Riddell call out stuff, and then you got Barron May, and they're running a little bit different scheme for Barron May, calling out stuff. It's just different. The line's just trying to do whatever. But that's probably a concern for me, because, again, 42-0. It was exactly how it should have happened. The defense got the shutout. The offense at times looked pretty dominant. Where they weren't dominant, ETSU 3 for 11 on third down again. Now, as Coral's brought up, really it was like 5 for 13 because they were 2 for 2 on fourth down, and they did say, hey, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, we've got 2 downs. Like, we're already making the call. We're going to go for that. So they treated it as such, and were able still to convert that. But 3 for 13 on that. They converted on a couple 3rd and longs. One was the touchdown pass on 3rd and 14, 3rd and goal from the 14-yard line. The other one was Barron May scramble for 16 yards on a 3rd and 13. And then I think it was like a 3rd and 6 they converted. but they did not convert on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 a couple times. And so that is also very concerning as an offense. And they averaged 7.2 yards on 3rd down. So, again, that's something I've charted since the return of football and try to keep up with. And so, and that's not a this-year team problem. That has been a huge problem since football has been rebooted at ETSU of staying out of, for the year, 3rd and long. And, having 50-some% or higher since it's been back of 3rd and longs. I mean, it's one thing if you can get, okay, we got about 30% 3rd and shorts, we got about 30% 3rd and mediums, and we got 30% 3rd and longs, right? That's about how it should probably equal out if you look across most football, right? It's about a third of each. ETSU is not there. It's like 10 to 15% in 3rd and short. It's like 25 to 40% on 3rd and medium, and the rest is 3rd and long every year. So ETSU still has to do a better job of correcting that. But I thought Barron May, given his first start, was able to go. I don't know how you can't take, some positives. I mean, every game I could probably pick out some plays and go, probably Tyler or Barron or name a quarterback could have, maybe looked this way instead of that way on a pass play and all the other stuff. I mean, that's every quarterback you could probably sit there and nitpick it. But I thought and I thought this too. Now, we talk about, or I did, him tucking around a little bit early. Every time he did it, there was a positive. I mean, he didn't, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, he did not lose yardage when doing that. Whenever he pulled the ball down and took off, there was a positive result in that. So it is hard to sit there and go, well, he stayed in the pocket a little bit longer. Maybe he could have hit bigger plays down the field because ETSU had 9 big plays, 7 in the ground game and then 2 in the air. And they probably had some opportunities a little bit more in the air, but in the same token, some of those weren't 25-yard pass completions. They were 16-yard runs. So, again, I think you're splitting hairs, or I'm splitting hairs in that regard, because he had positive plays whenever he did tuck the ball and go with it. And so –
right, I think the one thing that you would look at that and say, okay, that works against Carson-Newman, but what about a team that flies to the football the way that Austin Peay can when they're locked in? I think this team gets to the ball pretty well, especially in the flats. It just beyond that 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, out on the flanks, outside the hashes. I think they do a pretty solid job. Inside the hashes, they're a little bit more vulnerable. But ETSU hasn't really, like you talked about, they haven't really shown a great ability to run between the tackles. So you want to be able to throw. You want to be able to bust up the seams. You want to get Noah West involved in the pass game. Gyardetz has some opportunities to make some plays as a guy who's got a little bit of a bigger body than some of the DBs they're going to throw at him. And obviously Huzzy down the boundary is going to be there. But like those plays in the middle of the field are where Southern Illinois just ate Austin Peay alive. And that's where ETSU, I think, is still missing something, because they've shown an ability to be effective outside the hashes. What can you do between them? That's where great football teams are separated from good football teams. And we're going to have that conversation about a couple other SoCon teams here in a minute, but that's where I really see ETSU's opportunity, and it's where they need to get better the most urgently. So maybe that works out pretty nicely, because if you can be effective between the tackles, I think you can beat Austin Peay. Austin Peay played a ton of light boxes against Tennessee. Tennessee went vanilla and just didn't want to show, I guess, a lot of their run stuff. ETSU doesn't care. ETSU will put their run stuff on film. They need to put their run stuff on film this week, and they need to put the intermediate pass game over the middle of the field in there this week. That is where I see this game being won or lost for ETSU, is with the offense on the field and with the ability to work between the hash marks, or at the very least between the numbers against Austin Peay. How effective they are there is what's going to determine whether they win or lose the game. Okay, it's time to... Oh, wait.
got the big finish coming up. I like Sanford.
How about a big start? Yeah, I was going to say big start. For the Cattlemen. The SoCon runs through the place, question mark, of Cullowhee. Cullowhee is a census-designated place in North Carolina. And also it is a place that I think the Sanford Bulldogs would like to never go again after Saturday. They were down 14-7 in the second quarter, and a lightning delay happened that kept them off the field for 5 hours, and then they were down 17-7, and then they were down 20-7, and then they were down 30-7, and they lost to Western Carolina, snapping their winning streak in Southern Conference play that dated back to, actually I think it might have dated back to 2021. I don't know if they won their last game in 2021. It doesn't matter. The streak is over now. The undefeated reigning champions of a year ago will not be undefeated in the SoCon this year, and we have a new contender on the scene because holy smokes, Western Carolina.
I got a lot. So, opening the game, Western goes down the field, goes for it, 4th and goal from like the 2, gets stopped, stuffed, whatever, and then Sanford goes 98 yards and scores on the first drive. Mm-hmm. And then they don't score again. Right before the lightning delay, Michael Hires is scrambling. He does a spin move and gets absolutely hammered. And if they were going to play the game, because right as that happened is when the lightning delay hit, and so they had to call it, and he got a 5-hour break to get the cobwebs off. I don't know that he would have played the next couple series. And to be honest, I'm not sure that had to be in his mind or something, because he didn't play, I thought, very Michael Hires-like. There were a couple of mistakes that were hard to fathom. For an example, down 14-7, they drive down the field. They're at midfield. I think they're like at the 45-yard line of Western, 4th and 5, minute 20. They decide to go for it, and Hires takes like a 12, 14-yard sack. So then Western only runs 1 or 2 plays, gets in field goal range. They kick a field goal, and it takes it, to a 17 or 20, whatever it was, nothing lead at that, or 20-7 lead at that time. And then in the second half, the Desmond Reed and that offensive line, the biggest improvement, and I knew that they had brought in a lot of speed, and they got speed everywhere. The biggest improvement for Western Carolina, the defensive front and 3 or 4 guys were able to get the Hires almost all night, and the offensive line just mauled Sanford, and they kept grinding the ball. It was unbelievable.
I watched Western Carolina's offensive line against Arkansas, and I said, wow, that's a pretty good group. Arkansas is not going to do anything exotic. They couldn't get home with 4. They kept Gonzalez upright. Let's see how they run the ball. Well, they didn't run the ball, I don't think, super great against Arkansas, but they sure did against Sanford, and that offensive line, which is coached by Jeremy Darbo this year, Kerwin Bell, I believe, is either connected to or worked with at Florida. He was at Southern Miss most recently. He has put 8 dudes in the league. He's done a phenomenal job with that offensive line since coming in this year. That has been a major upgrade, and it might even be the best offensive line unit in the Southern Conference. We all thought it would be Furman, right? Because Furman returned basically everybody, and they added Fred Norman. But it's Darvo. It's Western Carolina. What Darvo's doing is absolutely spectacular. They looked as cohesive and just mean and they had a counter run. I think it was on the second drive of the game. It might have been the first one, but I think it was the second drive of the game, where they just rolled the entire defensive front to the right side outside the hash marks, and Des Reed had a lane that you could have run through. I mean, you literally could have driven your Ford F-350 or whatever it is you have, your way too big truck. You could have driven it through that hole and not hit anybody. That's how well the offensive line was clicking for the Catamounts on Saturday. And that's where I really feel like they have an advantage. If you're good up front on the offensive and defensive lines, and Western is, you've got something. Some people will say, well, Western's good for a game like that. I think this is different. I think this might be different.
So it was feast or famine, really, for Western. Okay, they had 10 drives. Mm-hmm. And I'm only going to count 9 because they got the ball with 11 seconds to go in a half. 2 plays, got a field goal off. So you take that out. Out of the other 9 drives, 7 of the 9 plays or more.
Mm-hmm.
They held the ball for 41 minutes, and it was a clinic. I mean, it was a lot of hand it off, a little throw in the flat, but they kept getting first downs. They kept moving, and the one thing we know about Samford is if you're going – they don't care about time of possession, but what they do care about is the fact that they ran – about a third less plays. So 84 plays for Western, 57 for Samford.
Ooh, that's not nearly enough for them.
They care more about the play total than they do the time of possession, but still, that's not a good number. And then in the second half, I mean, when Western could really just kind of go at them, I mean, Samford only had 4 possessions in the second half, 3 in the third, and only 1 possession in the fourth quarter. And so Western put on a clip. But the MO to beat Samford is about the same, right? If you can get to said quarterback, no matter who it is, and can drop everybody else in coverage, you're going to be successful. And then if you can run a lot more plays. I mean, when ETSU beat them in 2015, that's basically what they did. They held the ball for almost 42 minutes in the game. They ran a third more plays, and it was basically that's the kind of the formula. Unless you're ETSU of 2021 where it got in a shootout and ETSU could keep up and score. And there are a few teams that can.
Yeah.
But for the most part, when teams beat Samford, that is how they beat them. And Western Carolina's offensive and defensive line were very impressive in that game. And as I have kind of thumped the drum going into this year, the one team I said I didn't know what I was going to get all year because to me the ceiling is super high, but then the floor was also could be super low. Now all of a sudden that floor is starting to come up a little bit, and that ceiling's starting to expand for Western Carolina.
I think that's a statement win for the Catamounts. And the back end of their defense was going to be interesting to me. Outside linebacker, they've got Antoine Williams, who was at Austin Peay. He was all A-Sun, and he got to Hires and just, knocked the snot out of him on one play and made his presence felt. That's what he was brought in for. He's not a big dude. He's like 5'10", 205, so he's got some bulk to him, but he's not like a super tall, long guy that's just going to swallow the quarterback like a megalodon shark, in one big gulp. He's going to get after him, though, and when he hits, it's going to hurt. The other guy that stood out to me was Rod Gaddison at corner. They brought him in. He's I think he's been there for a little bit, but he got downhill a few times and made some plays at the line of scrimmage. I thought Samford's wide receivers did not look remotely interested in blocking, and Gaddison took advantage of that a couple of times and created some negative plays on some short passes in the flat that are behind the line of scrimmage that are designed to get a block from the wide receiver and move forward. And that simply did not happen because Samford's receivers just didn't really seem like they wanted it that badly. And they just didn't quite let guys go, but they also didn't do everything that they could. And I have some concerns about Samford's offensive line as well. I have bigger concerns about their defensive line. They looked pretty rough. And I also didn't think their offensive line looked super great against Shorter either. Hires took some hits in that game. So, I don't know, man. Samford's got some question marks.
So, flipping back to Western for just a second, hearing Kerwin Bell's comments after beating Chattanooga last year about coming off the bye week and really trying to get things refocused. And now they knocked off Wofford and ETSU, which were two teams that weren't particularly great.
Right.
But then they knocked off a number 15 or 17, depending on which poll you look at, Chattanooga, and then they roll around the next year. You play Arkansas, fine, take that away. Then you play a top 10 team in Samford, and again, I think 7 or 8, depending on what poll you're looking at. They win that game. And so now you're talking about 4 straight wins in the league-like opponents and a couple of ranked opponents back-to-back games. And they're going to go to an EKU team that's going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if Western goes on the road and knocks off EKU. I think there's a very, very much a possibility that you're talking about them as possible Southern Conference, not just contenders, but maybe possible Southern Conference champion conversation. Now, they go lose
Absolutely.
at EKU. I'm going to wait and see how that game plays out to see maybe how that goes. And even if they were to lose EKU, I could still see them in the conversation in competing for a Southern Conference championship. But I'm thinking they're going to be a huge threat if they go to EKU and pick up that win. So that's a big game.
Do you know who they get off their bye this year?
Who do they get to buy this year?
Furman at home.
It's a lot of purple. It's a lot of purple. It's a lot of purple.
Yeah, they could easily go into their bye week 5-1 based on what we've seen. At EKU, I think that's a very winnable game for this particular Western Carolina team. Charleston Southern at home. You play the way you played on Saturday, you're gonna be fine. At the Citadel, again, play the way you played on Saturday, you're gonna be fine. And then at Chattanooga, we'll see. That one could be interesting. I didn't get to watch Chattanooga-Kennesaw State this weekend. Saw it Chattanooga won. Obviously, Artopias threw the ball a ton because I guess that's their offense now. But I am, and they had to come back again. But that is a schedule that sets up really nicely for Western to get up to flying speed, and then just once they're off and rolling, man, look out. That could be, a lot of times it's been sort of the hand cart, like sometimes, like the push cart on the rails where you got to push it up and push the what is it? The handle, I call it the handlebars, up and down in the middle to make it go. And sometimes it goes really fast and sometimes it doesn't, depending on how much you're putting into it. I think this team is more like the freight train than the hand cart. This is, once they get rolling, they could get rolling.
Just curious, Kennesaw State threw for 181 yards, 12 of 16. There's some question marks in that Chattanooga secondary.
There are. I was really not impressed with Cam Brown against North Alabama. He got cooked a couple times. Like I said, I got to go back and watch it. But
I do.
That one's on my radar as well.
Yeah, just rolling through a couple other things. VMI, Bucknell, we thought maybe they had a shot to win that. Bucknell was able to outscore them in the fourth quarter, 21-13. So the Keydats can't make it two in a row. I have no idea why. I was talking about the Citadel. They got hammered 56-7 to Campbell. William & Mary, 23-6 winner over Wofford. Wofford got a couple of field goals in the first half and was right there late in the first half. I think William & Mary got a touchdown right before halftime, and that made it 20-6, and then they never looked back from there.
Yeah. But again, I thought a good showing for Wofford's defense. They didn't just get completely obliterated.
Furman had an interesting 14-14 with South Carolina, and then South Carolina just turned it on. So no knock on that, 47-21. South Carolina over there. So this week coming up, we'll give you just a quick glance, and then we'll talk about it more on Thursday. But Western EKU is an interesting game. I think Furman at Kennesaw is a pretty interesting game. Mm-hmm. Wofford's got a shot to beat Presbyterian. You got a couple teams playing up, VMI at NC State, Samford at Auburn. Obviously, the game we'll pay a lot of attention to, ETSU Austin P. And then there's only one conference game, and that's Citadel. Bless them. Got to go to Chattanooga. And
they're going to get destroyed.
Yes.
Believe Maurice when he tells you they're not a good football team.
They are not.
They are not.
The best games of the week, or at least the ones these two dorks want to watch. Nerd! It's the Pick Six.
You think that up all by yourself?
Pick Six recap from the weekend. At the 50, we had North Alabama at Tarleton. So, well, reset. Coming in to this weekend, week 1, I went 2-5, and Sandos went 2-4. Woo! So Sandos has a half-game lead coming in. 50-yard line, North Alabama at Tarleton. Sandos picked Tarleton. I picked UNA, and UNA flopped like a tuna.
I knew they would. Keith was buying in after one game.
And the final score of that game was
pretty ugly, wasn't it?
Tarleton 52, North Alabama 31.
Yeah, it wasn't that ugly, but it wasn't. Oh, it's 3 touchdowns. Yeah, that was pretty ugly.
Yeah, 40-yard line, Weber State at Northern Iowa. We both picked the Wildcats. I thought Weber was maybe a bit underrated, and I think I was right because Northern Iowa turned the ball over a ton. And Weber won that game 34-17 at Cedar Falls.
So my thing there wasn't so much about Weber State. It's the typical Northern Iowa. After about week 4, somehow they figure out how to play good football, and I can't figure that out.
I think Northern Iowa might not actually be that good. I think it's possible.
That could be the case too.
I think that's also a very real possibility. So a win for both of us there. Southern Illinois holds on to defeat Northern Illinois 14-11.
It's a brilliant take by Keith.
And I picked the Salukis. Sandos picked the Huskies because I watched the Valley for 6 years and he didn't. 20-yard line, Idaho at Nevada. We both picked the Vandals. I did not expect them to win at 33-6 the way that they did. Idaho is for real. Samford, Western Carolina. We both picked the Bulldogs. We've kind of talked that one in circles. At the goal line, Montana State and South Dakota State both picked the Jackrabbits. A potential game-winning touchdown for the Bobcats was overturned on video replay. It was that close.
So that was a little closer than you thought. You thought maybe the Jackrabbits by a couple touchdowns.
Well, now remember what I said was that Montana State has to prove that they won't get obliterated on the line of scrimmage for 60 minutes, and I think they proved that.
Oh, I agree.
I think they proved that. Their offensive and defensive lines are considerably improved from what they have been in the recent past, and Brent Vegan, who was the offensive coordinator at North Dakota State for many years, has taken a lot of that blueprint out to Bozeman and is building something real and sustainable out there with the work that Jeff Choate did, the groundwork that Jeff Choate laid. He has taken it to the next level. This isn't over.
And the flip side, the Jackrabbits get to play Montana State and North Dakota State and check the box for the first one.
And they get to prove it. They get to prove that they are the number one team. And you know what? You can say, well, if it wasn't for an overturn on video replay, yeah, but also by rule, he didn't complete the catch. So it's not a touchdown.
I have no issue on. I mean, we have replay for a reason. It did its job.
Yeah, it got the call right. That's and Montana. I thought both teams were not perfect. Montana State still had some false start penalties. There was a lot of pre-snap stuff that just wasn't as crisp as I think either team would like it to be. But if this is the Frisco rematch, sign me up. This game was awesome, and we both got it right. Extra point, Santa Claus picked Nebraska over Colorado.
First half, I thought I was living La Vida Loca, and then it turned quickly.
And I picked North Carolina Central over North Carolina A&T. That felt like a slam dunk because Central is ranked and got a lot of hype, and A&T looked like a rebuilding year, even though Massey had A&T favored in the game. I took that and ran to the hills with it. I went 5-2 this week. Sandos went 4-2 this week. So after 2 weeks, Jay is 6-6, and I am 7-7.
All right, so we're even.
We're even, except I have more wins, but I also have more losses.
We're 500.
Yeah, we're both 500.
Hey,
we're both 500.
Hey, we can sell that later. All right, Thursday got a fun show, right? We got we're going to break down the game fully, but we're not just going to give you ETSU side.
No, Brian Reeves, the voice of the Austin Peay Governors, will join us. The Govs. Hello, Governor.
We will start to look at some of the. There's some more intriguing games this week in the Southern Conference non-conference. Last week it was really like one, maybe two, but it wasn't a lot. So there's about 3 or 4 we can look at this week as we'll take a look around that. Plus we'll have Pick 6 where I will, get the lead on Keith.
I look forward to seeing you try.
I got to be better on my upset specials.
You gotta be better on your upset picks. Yeah, that's where you can make the difference.
I've been the kiss of death because both my teams have probably lost by an average of like 32 points. So there we go. You know, didn't lose by 32. The Buccaneers. They beat Carson-Newman. Jay Keith.
Buccaneers Sports Network.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me! 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 You gotta be kidding me!